David Alfred Perdue Jr. is an American politician and business executive who served as a United States Senator from Georgia from 2015 to 2021. He is a member of the Republican Party. After 12 years as a management consultant, Perdue became the senior vice president for Reebok, eventually becoming CEO. He later joined Pillowtex, a North Carolina textile company. He subsequently became CEO of Dollar General. Perdue first ran for the U.S. Senate in 2014, defeating Democratic nominee Michelle Nunn, daughter of former U.S. Senator Sam Nunn. Perdue ran for re-election in 2020, losing to Democrat Jon Ossoff, a former investigative journalist and filmmaker. Neither candidate received more than 50% of the vote in the November 3 election, so they faced off again in a January 5, 2021, runoff election. Ossoff declared victory on the morning of January 6, and was projected the winner by major news outlets later that day. Perdue conceded on January 8. Perdue initially filed paperwork with the Federal Election Commission to run for the other U.S. Senate seat in 2022 against incumbent Raphael Warnock, but announced on February 23 that he would not run. After the November election, Perdue called for the resignation of Georgia's top elections official and claimed without evidence that there were unspecified failures in the election. He later supported a lawsuit by Trump allies seeking to overturn the election results. Perdue was linked to the 2020 congressional insider trading scandal for allegations of Stock Act violations. The basis was stocks he sold before the 2020 stock market crash, allegedly using knowledge from a closed Senate meeting. The U.S. Department of Justice closed its inquiry in mid-2020, declaring him free of any charge. David Perdue was born in Macon, Georgia, the son of David Alfred Perdue Sr. and the former Gervais Wynn, both schoolteachers. His father, a Democrat, was the elected superintendent of schools for Houston County, Georgia, from 1961 to 1980, where he oversaw the desegregation of the school system, but only after a court ordered full desegregation. Perdue was raised in Warner Robins, Georgia, and graduated from Northside High School in 1968, where he was an excellent student, a varsity athlete, and class president. He went to college at the United States Air Force Academy starting in June 1968. After receiving an appointment from Congressman Jack Brinkley of Georgia, Perdue later transferred to Georgia Tech, where he earned a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering in 1972 and a master's degree in operations research in 1975. Perdue is the first cousin of former governor of Georgia and former U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue. Perdue began his career in 1972 at Kurt Salmon Associates, an international consulting firm, where he worked for 12 years as a management consultant, leaving in 1984. From 1991 to 1992, Perdue was a managing director at international clothing company Gaetano Group Inc. in Singapore. In 1992, Perdue took a position as Senior Vice President of Asia Operations for Sara Lee Corporation. During his tenure, Perdue was involved in sourcing suppliers in China and Hong Kong while the company closed dozens of plants in the U.S., 4 of them in Georgia. 2 years later, Perdue became Senior Vice President of Operations at Hager Clothing, increasing international production in lower-cost countries to 75% of the company's operations. In 1998, Perdue joined Reebok as a senior vice president, eventually rising to president and CEO of the Reebok brand. He is credited with rejuvenating its sneaker line. Perdue negotiated a contract with the National Football League that a former Reebok executive called revolutionary for repositioning the company's shoe brand. Perdue left Reebok in June 2002 to become the CEO of Pillowtex, a North Carolina textile company. The company had recently emerged from bankruptcy with a heavy debt load and an underfunded pension liability, unable to obtain additional funding from the company's investors or find a buyer for the company. He left the company in 2003 after 9 months on the job and $1.7 million in compensation. An internal auditor noted that Perdue's long absences from its North Carolina headquarters was Terrible for morale. We felt he'd given up. In July 2003, Pillowtex announced it would go out of business, leaving 7,650 workers out of work nationwide. After leaving Pillowtex, Perdue became CEO of Dollar General. Before he joined the company, it had recently overstated profits by $100 million and paid $162 million to settle shareholder lawsuits. Perdue overhauled the company's inventory line and logistics network and updated its marketing strategy. After initially closing hundreds of stores, the company doubled its stock price and opened 2,600 new stores. During his 4 years as CEO, almost 2,500 individual employment cases were filed in federal court against the company, compared to 76 in the prior 4 years. Perdue